Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today for our Friday blog discussion. Today I'm flying solo, but we wanted to get into the 4 Wilco firearm safety rules that we use out on the range every time that we go and train. These are very similar to some of the firearm safety rules that maybe you're used to from, say, the NRA or the military. We have a couple of caveats that we've instituted that help us make a safer range or a safer firearm handling experience. We'll get into some of those small caveats. Tell me what you think about them down in the comments. Furthermore, let us know what you'd like to have a conversation about, and then we'll put our Wilco training cadre to the task and have a discussion about it. Give us a like, give us a share. As always, we're thankful that you're with us, and let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here with us on our latest discussion. We're going to take a break from the 7 firearm fundamentals for this episode and talk about the 4 firearm safety rules, the rules for handling a firearm. The Wilco firearm safety rules we have a small deviation from sort of the standard 4 firearm safety rules that maybe you would get from the NRA or from the conventional Department of Defense, the DoD, or the military. And we'll explain those small deviations that we use. I am flying solo today. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here with me. Let's get into the safety. Whenever we do our firearm safety brief at the beginning of each range day, we like to caveat that as you progress handling a firearm, there can be a trend to negate firearm safety, and firearm safety may not be cool, or I am in some way above firearm safety in that I've handled this firearm or this tool for X amount of days, months, years, or whatever, and maybe firearm safety doesn't apply to me anymore. Nothing could be further from the truth. That is an ignorant way of thinking, and if you do behave that way, I can almost guarantee something eventually happening with you and the firearm or somebody else and the firearm. So we brief the 4 firearm safety rules at the beginning of each range day, and without further ado, they are the Wilco firearm rules. Know the condition of your weapon at all times, and if you don't know, check. Never point the weapon at anything that you're not willing to destroy. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you're ready to engage, and then know the background, the foreground, and the surrounding of your target. Again, you may have heard they're very similar, but there are a couple of little differences that we have. The first one, treat every firearm as if it's loaded, is probably what we're all used to. Wilco goes a step further than that. Know the condition of your firearm. And if you don't know the condition, check, and Wilco will teach you how to do that. So we treat all firearms as if they're loaded, sure, but as subject matter experts and as firearm users, we should be able to check and know the status of our firearm at all times. And there are times out there on the firing line where I will forget. Do I have a round in the chamber? Do I have a magazine loaded into the firearm? I'll forget. Check. You'll get an opportunity to conduct a press check before each course of fire and make sure that your weapon is set up ready to rock and roll. Furthermore, if you're ready to put it away, will safe and clear the weapons, and we will know the condition of that firearm, of that tool at all times. Next, keep our fingers straight and off the trigger until we're ready to engage. This, it almost goes without saying, but new shooters, that trigger requires a finger, and people want to put that trigger finger where it goes on the trigger. However, when you get into one of the reasons that we say keep the finger straight and off the trigger, typically our firearms are reserved for navigating deadly force encounters. When a deadly force encounter occurs, you will probably experience a fight or flight response. What can happen whenever you go through that response is you have what's called a parasympathetic response, where your fists may, or your hands will close into fists. If I'm grabbing a pistol there, uh, and I have my finger on the trigger and I have a parasympathetic response, both of my hands will clasp into fists, and I can have a tendency to pull that trigger without gaining sight alignment, sight picture, or being ready to fire around. So finger straight and off the trigger until you are ready to engage, and then it is a cognitive process to tell your hand put the finger on the trigger and then get a smooth trigger press to the rear and accomplish a shot. Next, know the background, the foreground, and the surrounding of your target. Bullets go through things, and definitely inside of short distances, inside of, say, 100 meters, even with pistols, bullets will go through things. So we need to be cognizant of what is beyond our target, what is behind what we're shooting at, because there is a high probability that the projectile will blast through that and travel into whatever is behind it. Furthermore, on the left and right side and the foreground of the target, I frequently miss to the left, miss to the right, may miss low. So we need to make sure that the surrounding areas of our target are free of something that you're not supposed to be shooting at. Because we definitely don't want to be navigating a deadly force encounter and then cause more problems by putting projectiles, bullets into things that we do not want to put bullets and projectiles into. Lastly, never point the weapon at anything that you're not willing to destroy. Again, like the finger off the trigger, it almost goes without saying, but until you've mastered muzzle awareness, which takes probably 2,000 to 3,000 repetitions of getting onto the firearm and being comfortable with the firearm, you have to work at it. And especially new shooters out on the firing range, Wilco does a pretty good job of throwing commands out during the courses of fire to prevent folks from having any moving around. Hey, I just shot a really good. Hey, put the pistol back down towards the firing line in the safe direction. Again, it can be really easy to knock out whatever it was that you were shooting at, and then willy nilly point the muzzle in an unsafe area. Typically, what we would brief in our standard range would be the approved areas to point the muzzle of the firearm is downrange towards the target area, and also down at your feet. The kind of other approved area would be to point it straight up into the air. If you have a rifle and you had it stripper pulled in a CQB situation, a close quarters battle situation, that can be an approved area to point the muzzle of the firearm. One caveat that I will say is whenever you get into those situations like close quarter battle, and with my teammates that I used to have the privilege of running around with, uh, that muzzle from a teammate may be very close to your head or your teammate's head. So we would always say, I'm okay if you're pointing your weapon at me or your firearm at me, as long as you know that you're doing it. Because as you move through a house or an urban environment, things get very tight very fast. And to cram a fire team of individuals into a room, there may be situations where you have to point your muzzle at a friendly, at your best friend, at a teammate, etc. So we would say, if you have to, it's okay as long as you know that you're pointing your muzzle at me or the friend or the teammate, etc. If you don't know, then we have a problem. We have a whole another problem. Um, I think I covered them. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you're ready to engage. Know the background, the foreground, and the surrounding areas of your target. Never point the firearm at anything that you're not comfortable with destroying, and know the status of your weapon at all times. Or treat all firearms as if they're loaded. Again, the Wilco standards go a little bit above and beyond. The last point that I wanted to say with regard to knowing the background, the foreground, and the surrounding areas of our targets, and it's one of the reasons why Wilco focuses so much on marksmanship fundamentals. I've made the comment before, this isn't Vietnam. You can't get a squad of individuals lined up and put lead all in one direction or bullets all in one direction to win a fight anymore. You have to have surgical precision shots, and that shot placement it has to go into an approved area to stop a deadly force encounter even. So we focus on being able to put the bullet or the projectile where it needs to go, again, because bullets go through things and there are unapproved targets out there, and there would be probably a few things worse than winning a deadly force encounter, dominating a deadly force encounter, and having the extra cleanup of dealing with an unapproved uh, something being hit. That would be a serious problem, and both emotionally, legally, in some situations. So following the 7 firearm fundamentals and following the 4 Wilco firearm safety rules can help keep you in a statistically better position to stay safe and win the fight and stack the deck in your favor. Once again, thank you so much for letting me ramble on. Again, this is less of a discussion and more of a monologue for this week, but I'm happy that you're here. And please feel free to leave us a comment in the comments down there. What would you like to have a conversation about? And then we'll put it up to the Wilco training cadre and dig into it. Thanks again.